With James Robinson's return, where do the Jaguars running backs stack up? And what about Devin Lloyd coming back? How quickly can he get acclimated to that linebacker position? We'll talk about all of that here today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So this is brought to you by BriteCo Jewelry and Watch Insurance. BriteCo brings you comprehensive, fast, and affordable jewelry insurance for as low as $5 a month. Check out your special offer for Locked On listeners and get covered in under 2 minutes at brite.co/locked on. That's brite.co/locked on. And we thank you for joining us and making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars, because it's your team every day. And we are free on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. What is going on, good people? I always say the running back position is something that people continue to devalue, at least in their words. However, when a team doesn't have a running back or capable running back depth, it really bites them in the butt. So that means that the position isn't devalued. It's just that some teams just have a better way of identifying where to get running back talent than others don't. I'm going to tell you where that stuff comes from, okay? It comes from the fact that running backs in recent history that were taken early in the first round, Leonard Fournette didn't last here in Jacksonville. Christian McCaffrey's banged up. Saquon Barkley has been banged up. Todd Gurley had a short career. All of those things. Those are the things that happen. But then folks in the next breath will talk about how the Alvin Kamaras and the James Connors and all of those guys were found late, right? Not making the equivalence that those guys also stayed healthy. It's like the reason why you don't take a running back early is because he flames out and he gets hurt. Zeke, you can throw Zeke in there too. But yet still, they'll use a running back that has stayed relatively healthy his entire career, who was just picked later, and say, well, that's why you pick him late. Well, you just take the injury out of the equation, right? I mean, you take injuries out of the equation, because if a guy's going to be banged up and he's got a 5-year shelf life, it doesn't matter where you pick him, he had a 5-year shelf life. So what folks miss about the running back equation, before I start talking about the Jaguars backs, is, and look, both of our backs are coming off injuries, like devastating injuries, Liz Frank and an Achilles. So I get it, talking about injuries. But the reason why folks say that, one of the reasons that they're not making or putting into the equation is they point to teams like San Francisco. And before that, they pointed to teams like Denver, if you're old enough to remember, who were both coached by guys like named Mike Shanahan or Kyle Shanahan, right? Well, there's a reason that those guys, those coaches, were able to have success with guys or running backs who weren't chosen early. It's called scouting. It's called being able to identify not just guys who know how to play in the NFL, but guys who know how to play in the NFL for you. Guys that fit what you want to do. And in most cases, those coaches have continuity in their staff and continuity in their job. And you don't get a situation where, okay, one administration wants a big back, they change coaches, and he doesn't like the guy, and then he runs them off. That's usually not the way it works. Those Shanahan people don't get fired from offensive coordinator jobs or head coaching jobs very often. So when you have the continuity, and when you have the continuity of a guy like Andy Reid, who always seems to be able to find a running back, at some point we have to understand that it's not just because, they just can pick anybody. No, it's because they can pick the right person for them. They understand skill sets. They understand things that folks do that would make their system work better. The one-cut guys, the guys that get north and south, they might not fit in every system. They might not. Ask yourself this question. How many times have you seen a running back play for either Shanahan, Matt Breida, for example? He leaves San Francisco and all of a sudden looks like he can't play. How many times one of those running backs that played in that system, when they leave that system, they go somewhere else and they don't have the same success? Don't worry, I'll wait. It's a long list of them. And you know why? It's because they fit what they wanted to do. And they were able to replace them because they found guys who fit what they wanted to do. And they've done a good job of identifying it. So it ain't always the fact that you can just wait until later to get a running back. A football player is a football player in a lot of these cases. That's not the case. It's not, oh, just wait. You ain't going to be able to just wait if you ain't no good at picking. There's some people that hate the Leonard Fournette pick. Fine, if you hated the Leonard Fournette pick, not only because it was at 4, but they hated the Leonard Fournette pick because the Leonard Fournette pick was the Leonard Fournette pick. And they would have hated it if it was a 4th round pick. They would have hated it the same way. And that goes to my point. The point is it's about identifying who can play for you and who can't and what they can do for you. First of all, in order to do that, you really have to identify who you are and what you do, right? And that's been a problem for Jacksonville. Derrick Henry ain't everybody's cup of tea. Now, obviously, with the success that Derrick Henry's had, anywhere he goes, they're going to change things to fit what he does now. But everyone wouldn't have given Derrick Henry that opportunity. I don't know if Derrick Henry could have played for the Shanahans if they didn't already see it in the NFL. So the point that I'm making is the Jaguars have an undrafted free agent in James Robinson, who is listed as their starter on their depth chart. They have a former first-round pick in Travis Etienne, who folks hated the pick. Some of them did. And then they really hated the pick when Travis Etienne got hurt. So I'm trying to use this first segment to establish the difference between can't play, got hurt, positional value, draft value. Okay? Into saying this. When it's all said and done, and this is where we're headed to, when it's all said and done, with a healthy James Robinson and a healthy Travis Etienne, now all of a sudden, Jaguar fans are excited about the potential of those two guys playing together. I get lost sometimes because when we hear people say they devalue the running back position and the running back, you can just find anybody, they don't remember when the Jaguars had Toby Gerhart. Those kind of folks don't remember when the Jaguars rolled out all their money for Chris Ivory. They don't remember when they were putting their hopes on Shoelaces or Corey Grant. Now you just can't pick anybody. So you ought to be happy with the fact that there are two really good young running backs with a lot of potential. I'm going to talk about their potential and mention something that I heard from the joint practices in Atlanta, that some folks don't think James Robinson is quite ready. And if he isn't, what does that mean early in the season? I'll tell you all of those things here on Locked On Jaguars after I let you guys know about BriteCo. Let me tell you something. You ever been the dummy to go to Mexico and have one of your most expensive rings on your finger and people beg you to get into the water in the ocean and jump off a catamaran? And they question your manhood, so you do it, and you forget you got this ring on your finger that might come off when it gets wet. Yeah, you're looking at somebody or listening to somebody who did that kind of stuff. And you know what? My day would not have been as bad if I wasn't that guy. And I'm going to tell you who that guy is. That guy is me, because I did not have BriteCo jury insurance, and it would have made sure I got a replacement for the full value of that ring, no matter if it's lost, stolen, or you just can't figure out what happened to it. I know exactly what happened to mine, and they would have still gave me money. Go to Brite/./co Locked On. It's the fastest and easiest and cheapest way to cover your butt with the best jury insurance in the business. These guys are geniuses, man. They made buying insurance for your engagement ring and your watch or whatever so freaking easy that you can get covered in 2 minutes on your cell phone. You won't find a better deal on great coverage that's super affordable. It's Brite/./co/Locked On. And it's TIIGG here on Locked On Jaguars and YOU coming together, because we get together every single day because it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. First reports out of Flowery Branch. If you guys don't know, that's where the Atlanta Falcons practice and some joint practices with the Jaguars. First report says that James Robinson didn't look totally comfortable. Is anyone surprised? I'm not. The Jaguars have brought James Robinson slowly along during the preseason, working him out on the side. And it's one thing to run by yourself and cut by yourself. It's quite another when you're back and you're trying to avoid feet and run in between guys and guys are chasing you, and now you're spontaneously cutting and making extra moves. I think it's just a step. I do believe sometimes these are the times when having access and not really understanding that kind of sounds the alarm and makes people really, really nervous about what they do and don't see and what they know about what they do and don't see. It could be very well that these reports of him not looking quite as nifty or ready as you might have anticipated are a little bit overblown, only because he might be exactly where the doctor thought he would be if the doctor's sitting there watching it. But because we don't do this for a living all the time, sometimes our eye isn't trained to see what those people expect. Travis Etienne and Snoop Connor are going to have to start this season out leading this team. I believe slowly but surely James Robinson comes along. Now, here's the thing with James Robinson that doesn't concern me. I'm more concerned about the long-term future of them as a tandem than I am of what he looks like in the first month of the season. I'm more concerned with what happens towards the end of this year and the beginning of next year and the overall macro future of this football team than I am about what actually goes on this year. And I know there are a lot of people that either want to sell the expectation that they could be like the Bengals and make a run for the Super Bowl. And of course, fans are always optimistic because they leave room for the best case scenario to happen. And that is that the Jaguars are going to win every game this year and they're just magically going to. I also believe that you can leave room by not having those expectations. Like, I'll leave room if I say, maybe 6-7 games, I'll be cool with it. Maybe that's my way or somebody else's way of leaving room for growth to occur and happen at a rate that's usually more normal with what we see from a team that's picked number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years or 2 years in a row and then in the top 10 forever. Sometimes it just doesn't happen overnight, man. Sometimes it doesn't. And as good as the defense looks and as much potential as Trevor's displaying, when it comes to those running backs, the best thing about them might not be what they offer you this year. Especially with both of them, Travis Etienne and James Robinson, both coming off of injuries that could have absolutely affected their career. I think that when you really think about it, the Jaguars have been extremely fortunate that James Robinson is able to run and cut, and that Travis Etienne came back and was able to even run. He had a Liz Frank injury that has, quite frankly, ruined the careers of other running backs. Achilles tendons. Everybody ain't Cam Robinson, just like everybody with a knee injury ain't Willis McGahee. There are some people that don't recover. I think Tre'Davious White is still out on, he's not even ready to go yet. So I think we assume that because of modern medicine and because of a miraculous story, maybe about from another player, I think we start to assume that, okay, well, this is the standard now. That's what you hope for. That's a best case scenario. And I think the Jaguars' best case scenario has happened. Travis Etienne is running full speed, and James Robinson appears to be ahead of schedule. So I'm not going to get Debbie down and poo-poo because the first time he got in action, he looked hesitant or tentative. I think that's natural. And it's not anything that we should be overly concerned with. But what you'll see from them in the future, I believe, is a nice yin and yang. And I think they'll probably have some packages also where those guys are on the field together. But what I'm talking about is down the line. He's getting closer and closer. And I know I did a podcast about that and why it bodes well for the Jaguars. But that chronological clock that I had in my head wasn't necessarily just about this year. It's about the prospects and the potential that he could help this year with more of a long-term view And sometimes I got to calm myself down too. I'm no different from anybody else, but it's more of a long-term view from what I believe that he has to offer this football team. Now, there's another player that has been generating a lot of interest about what he potentially offers this football team, and that's Devin Lloyd, the second of 2 first-round picks in the 2022 draft, the linebacker out of Utah, who had a hammy. Don't you love when people say somebody had this or has that? He has a knee, he has an ankle. Of course, he has a knee and he has an ankle. As a matter of fact, he has 2 of them. But when you say he had a hammy, you mean that he had a hamstring injury. That's just football talk. And while it was considered mild and no big deal, it's not a small deal to me, because I know how aggravating it could be, and I know how mentally it could mess with you if you have these soft tissue injuries, especially that have to do with your core, your stomach, your groin, your hamstrings, all that stuff that's kind of tied together. It can really screw you up, and it could take longer for you to get back. Well, reports are from Flowery Branch once again that he looked a little hesitant, that he didn't look as quick, and he didn't look as springy, and he didn't look as fast as had been anticipated. Of course, he didn't. This is also maybe another case of maybe we're over-evaluating or putting an evaluation or putting this sort of cloud over a situation, and maybe the doctors or the surgeons and the trainers are sitting there going, that's exactly where he's supposed to be right now, and this was his first step. It's almost like letting a baby walk for the first time. Oh, he ain't supposed to stagger? Well, he ain't there yet. Hell no, he ain't there yet. He just started walking. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I hate to give these elementary analogies, but sometimes I think you have to break it down that way, because that maybe guys are right on schedule, and maybe the hesitancy. We like to watch the process and give a diagnosis off of the process, when in fact it's perfect. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. One time we were in high school practice. I'll never forget this day. We had a big center. He's like 6'8", a guy named Raymond, and he was the inbound guy. And I'm standing on the sideline, which is where I was most of the time during practice. And I saw the guy that Raymond was supposed to throw the ball to. And I said, throw it. And I got crushed by my coach. He said, you're doing too much coaching. You're a player. He said, I didn't want him to throw that ball. I want him to see it first. The guy was open. He was always going to be open. I'd rather him take his time and throw the ball than rush it. Why are you instructing him to throw the ball when I'm standing right here? Well, you think you're better at coaching than me? And it humbled me to the point where sometimes we have to realize that what we see is normal. It's not a cause to be concerned. It's normal. And if there was something wrong, they would probably take the player out and not allow him to be out there. But what we have, when we have these credentials, we have the privy. It's a privilege for us to see the process, like somebody getting burnt in prayer. Oh, he got toasted. He ain't good. No, those reps, that's how you get better. The analogy I always use was, we saw Michael Jackson in his choreography, or Chris Brown in his choreography. We didn't see what happened in practice. They screwed up a lot. And I think that's what goes on here for the Jaguars. I'm going to talk about Devin Lloyd, his impact, and what he may or may not be able to do. I have to remind you, though, that we thank you again for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview starting August 31st. It's an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey NFL Insiders are combining into one ultimate NFL preview, and it's starting on August 31st. Make sure you search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. And man, I'm going to get to Devin Lloyd. I'm going to talk a little bit about that defense, talk all about those things, and I'll do it in just a second, as I always do, here on Locked On Jaguars. I got to tell you guys about LinkedIn, though, man. I'm telling you, if you have a business and you need to get the word out to prospective employees, only one way for you to do it. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Now, I know this works because my daughter used it when she got out of the Army. And within days, she was set up for interviews and she had a job before she was even discharged from active duty. So I know that it works. What you have to do then is add your job and the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. So your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skill set and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You love coming here with me on Locked On Jaguars and applying all of your listening skills and checking me out as I let you know what's going on the daily podcast because it's your team every day. Thank you again for making us your first listen or first view on YouTube. If you want to check me out on YouTube, please like and subscribe and tell your friends, tell your mama, your daddy, everybody to come on and follow. The Devin Lloyd and his impact on the defense. Another long-term impact. And I know nobody wants to hear that crap because we're 2 weeks away, about a little bit less than 2 weeks away from, or a little bit more than 2 weeks away from the opening of the season. Everybody wants to know, man, what are we going to do this year? Well, I think that's why you go out and sign the people that you sign. I think that's why you have hope for guys like Shaq Quarterman. I think that's why you have hope that there's a lot of depth. Of course, Foye Oluokun is going to be the leader of that defense. What he'll provide is that he's the size and athletic profile that they wanted to change for that position. He has a knack for creating turnovers and getting his hands on the ball. He has real long arms, and he's basically the size of a lot of defensive ends that a lot of defensive ends have been around. He's like the size of Yannick Ngakoue, but longer, playing middle linebacker. And I had someone tell me yesterday that they ought to try K'Lavon Chaisson at Mike linebacker. You know what, man? I saw a video of 45. He's getting into James Winston territory in terms of watching him run and really not laughing at him, but kind of laughing with him. It's getting to – he tries hard, bro. And I know we're talking about Devin Lloyd, but I got to talk about 45. He tries hard. And I really think – I don't want to like just pick at him and call him a bust. It's getting to the point where now that's not what you want to do. What you want to do now is just go K'Lavon. Go K'Lavon. You remember when you was little, your mom used to make you come dance in front of everybody during Thanksgiving and you really couldn't dance, but you trying so hard, you know. That's kind of like it is right now, man. But he's given tons of effort. And from what I understand, he is a great guy. And I talked to somebody who plays football for a living, and they told me they might need to try him at Mike linebacker. He just might not be a pass rusher, but he knows where to go and what to do, and he's going to try hard. So I don't know if that's the case or not, but he's about the same size as Devin Lloyd, the dude we're talking about. It might not be, seriously, it might not be very optimistic to you that we're sitting here talking about folks players that are frontline players, and now we're using this term macro, long term, and all of that stuff. But the reality is that's the way football teams have to think. Because what happens if the second things start to go wrong, then you want to quit on everything and retool stuff. And see, we've seen that before here. It's going to require a little bit of patience. It's going to require a little bit of understanding with certain players. I know we like to say this guy's a bust or they should have picked somebody else, because I see a lot of people are going, they're looking at the draft picks and they say, I'd rather have those two guys than these two. Doesn't mean that that's what they were going to do. Like Travis Etienne and whoever they picked in the third round. So you find another running back and another combination on another team and say, I'd rather have those two guys. Doesn't mean that they were going to do. Boards don't work that way. Maybe that dude that other team picked in the third round, they didn't have him on their board. They didn't like him. It doesn't mean that they were going to pick the same position. Doesn't. They could have gone a totally different way. They could have just picked a whole nother position, a whole nother player, whoever had the value in their board. And that's where Chad Muma comes in. And you see that, right? You would think that they didn't need another linebacker at that point, but they had him ranked high at that spot, so they took him. And that's the way, this works. And sometimes maybe Chad Muma's presence now, and I think I mentioned this after the draft, if I'm not mistaken, that Chad Muma is like one injured player away from being a starter in the middle. Chad Muma gives you that versatility that in 3 years, when Foye Oluokan's contract is up, you still got 2 young linebackers. That's what he gives you in their 4th year. You have to get it to the point where at some point you're not just totally replacing people. You're starting to elevate folks. And the only way you can get that is make some sacrifices in the draft and just take the best available player. And I think that's what they've done. But we're going to keep our eye on both James Robinson and Devin Lloyd, because if Devin Lloyd doesn't play, is unable to go early in the season, it could affect how they start this year. And that means that you'll need more from Shaq Quarterman and Chad Muma. And if James Robinson isn't able to go as early as we had all hoped, then that means a lot falls on Snoop Conner. There's some people that think the Jags need to go out and maybe kick the tires on, I hate that term, but I'm going to use it, kick the tires on Kenyon Drake. We'll see. We'll have more from Flowery Branch tomorrow as we lead up to the preview of the Falcons Jaguars preseason finale. We're going to look at some guys that can make some noise. I don't think there's that many jobs that are available. I think maybe 6 or 7 going into the final week. Let's talk about the people battling for those jobs. We'll make sure we do that on the next episode as we preview the Falcons and the Jaguars and get ready for the preseason finale and start bracing ourselves for some of these cuts that's going to happen. And we'll do that the next time I see you. But until then, you guys take care of each other. Until next time.